live.
Live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Fit Fun Recharge on Monday mornings or Monday not lunchtime. It is. So have fun. We have Dre again, our athletic trainer, and Cliff, our charge nurse. We all will follow Dre's lead. And please note the mask I'm wearing today is the so-called Eric mask, and we will learn how to do that Eric mask in our sewing seminar live on YouTube on Wednesday at 2 p.m. So join us.
All right, everyone. Hope you had enough water today. Today we're going to go through a pretty nice little easy workout. We're going to start off with some warming up of the upper body. So we're going to start with a little baby circle moving forward.
And I'm just spacing out a little bit for social distancing, Dre, so that we are.
So go ahead and start picking up speed a little bit. Making sure you're squeezing your shoulder blades all the way at the back. Good. Cliff is doing a good job of making bigger circles. And now we're going to start bringing our arms across, making sure you're switching the right arm and the left arm going over each other. Squeezing shoulder blades. You might feel a little popping, clicking in your shoulders. If we're sitting a lot at home, this exercise, along with the next few that are coming up, are good for mobilizing the shoulders and getting some different muscles to wake up a little bit. Now we're going overhead, so one arm goes all the way up towards the ceiling, and then we switch. Like you're trying to raise your hand to get the teacher's attention. You can hold for a second. You can go fast.
Dre, you want to step forward so that people can hear you better?
Sure.
And I go in the back.
You should start to feel a little bit of a shoulder burn by now. And now we're going overhead like we're making snow angels, all the way to the top. Let your hands touch and then bring them all the way down to your side, all the way back up. You can take your time going down. That's called an eccentric contraction, and going up is a concentric contraction. Do about 15 of those at your pace.
Are we allowed to take our hips with us a little
Absolutely, that is a great addition.
Feels
We
nice.
call it those top-down forces. So I'm generating a force with my arms and letting that travel down my body. Next, we're doing our hip excursion. We did this our very first week, so let's put our hands on our hips there. Feet are about 6 inches apart. You're going to push your hips forward. You're going to squeeze your cheeks. What it looks like from the side is I'm coming here, so I'm not bending my back so much. And then I'm going to pop my hips back like I'm trying to touch a chair. You can take your hands out in front. Your hips should be nice and high. You should feel a nice little stretch in your hamstrings. You're going to come back, push your hips through, and go into that motion again. Good. Do about 10 of those. If you're doing this at home, you can put a stool underneath you in the event that you feel like toppling over and you're challenging yourself for the depth. Good. Now we're going to do our side. So we're going to pop our right hip to the right and then take our right arm and go overhead. And then we switch. Do about 10 of those. Should feel a nice stretch on the sides here, maybe a little bit in your low back, maybe even a little bit up towards the ribs, depending on how tight we are. Good. Now we're going to rotate. So our feet are still staying the same. I'm going to take my right arm. I'm going to pretend there's a bag of money on towards my left-hand side. I'm going to reach as far as I can without letting my feet rotate or come off the ground. I'm going to go to the left. Now you can hold, or you can go for a little bit of speed there. Making sure your core is nice and tight. That means if someone comes and karate chops you, your belly is going to be nice and hard. And that's going to prevent any pain in your low back. Cliff is checking to see if we've got a question there.
Mike Janine says, I think I could do this part.
Ah, perfect. Mr. Janine, hello.
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 Good. Go ahead and shake those arms out. Now we're going to do a little quick hamstring stretch. I'm feeling a little tight in my hamstrings, so before we get into these next movements, I want to make sure we mobilize those. So you can be seated or you can be standing. I'm going to take my right leg and I'm going to reach out in front. I'm going to take my left arm and reach towards my toes.
I'll do the seated modification.
Now notice I mentioned reach towards your toes. You don't have to touch your toes per se. So you can see Dr. V there is reaching towards her toes as she's seated. And then she's going to take her right leg out. So she's going to switch.
Want me to switch legs?
Yep. Good. So now go ahead and grab a little bit of water. Stretch out a little bit. If you have anything that's feeling tight in your body, let us know in that chat and we can stretch it out together. Otherwise, we'll walk you through the rest of the workout. And today we're doing a workout that has a repetition scheme of 20, 16, and 12. That means I'm going to do one movement for 20 repetitions, and then the second movement for 20, and then the third for 20. Once I finish all three, then we move on to 16 until we get all the way down to 12. If you want to keep track of your time, that's great. We'll get back to this workout sometime in the future so you can compare how quickly you're able to complete it. What you'll need is some kind of a weight. So Cliff is holding a ball. Dr. V is going to use a couple of water bottles. And if you have a TheraBand at home of any color, you can use that today as well. So the first movement we're going to do is called an X chop. So I'm going to have my weight. And I'm going to scoot back a little bit so you all can see my legs. I'm going to take a slight step forward with my right leg. It's not a full lunge. It's not a deep lunge. You're going to get nice and comfortable. The more narrow your feet are, the more balance you're going to need from your core and the upper body. So if you widen out just a little bit, you'll feel a little more stable. So if you can get in that position, that's awesome. If you cannot, you can bring your feet together a little bit more to be a little more stable. So what the X chop is the ball's going to start about chest height, and you're going to bring it towards the hip of the leg that's forward. So my right leg is forward, so I'm bringing my ball towards my right hip. I'm going to take this ball almost like I'm going to try to throw it over my left shoulder. There's a little rotation in my upper body, and that's what we want. And then you're going to bring it back down. That would be an X chop. So for the first round of 20, you're going to do 10 each leg. So I'm going to call that 10. I'm going to switch legs with my left leg forward now. Now my ball goes towards my left hip, over my right shoulder, down towards my left hip. If you don't have a weight, if we have any kind of impingement in the shoulders, maybe some rotator cuff, our elbows are a little uncomfortable, just take an imaginary ball and go through the motion. So you want to get rotation through the core, and that is perfectly good as well. So that's movement number one. Second movement is a plank shoulder tap. So I'm going to get down onto the floor. Into a plank position. And if you're able to, you're going to take your right hand and you're going to tap your left shoulder. And we're going to alternate until you get to 20. If you're thinking, no way, dude, you're going to go up to something elevated, you can do it this way as well. And if that elevation is not enough, you can go to a wall or a door in this position, and you're going to do the shoulder taps. The important thing here is making sure your back doesn't collapse and you have this big dip. We're working on a lot of shoulder stability, tricep strength with that movement. The last one is a thruster. You're going to have a TheraBand. You're going to spread your feet a little bit. You're going to squat as best as you can. As you stand up, you're going to take this band overhead. and you're gonna do that 20 times. If an overhead position is uncomfortable for you, there's modifications such as the one Dr. V is using, where she has water bottles in her hand, so there's not a constant strain. And the next one we can do is you can cross your TheraBand to make an X. You're gonna squat. If your squat's about a quarter squat, perfect. As you come up, you're gonna bring that band up towards your shoulders. And you'll do 20 of those. Once you finish 20 repetitions of all 3 movements, you go to 16, and then you go to 12. There is no time limit on this, and we're going to move at our own pace as Dr. V and Cliff run through the workout.
Cliff.
I will help them with modifications and different coaching cues. Keep coming with questions and modification needs in the chat, and I'll check them periodically. But for now, I'm going to count down everybody. 3, 2, 1. We'll get started. So your first movement is that X chop. So find whatever item you're going to be using for your X chop. And remember that you are bringing your weights down to the hip of the forward leg. So let's all start with the left leg forward. And 3, 2, 1, we go. So you're going for 20 repetitions. Dr. V, take that weight, go towards your left hip. And then are you going over the right shoulder? Beautiful. So you're doing 10 on each leg. You're going at your own pace. So I'm on 5 there. Cliff is done with his first side, so he switches over.
What do we do with our head? Is it staying front? Or does it follow the direction of
For this first one, let your head go where it feels most comfortable. So if that's down with the weight, that's fine. If you want to challenge yourself, you can try to keep that head up. But letting your eyes go with the weight is definitely a lot more comfortable. So Cliff is done with his 20, so he's going to move on to shoulder taps. I'm going to check the chat for us. Mark Deneen, it's Dre, it's Cliff.
Like
So,
that?
nope, stay in a plank, almost like you're going to do a push-up. There you go. Right hand goes, yes, exactly. So Cliff is in a push-up position, and he's alternating his hands going towards his shoulders. The one thing I'm going to challenge him on is to keep these hips as straight as possible and not have much rotation.
You know, can I modify and be on my knees? That might be a little...
100%. That is a fantastic modification. Dr. Ree went down to her knees. That's going to reduce the amount of stress going through the core.
And because that hurts, I'll pull in a mat.
Exactly. Perfect.
Okay.
So as they work through that 20, I'm going to show you
I'll
guys
speed up.
the modification here. So the only thing I would recommend, Dr. B, is drive your hips back just a little bit.
Like that?
Even just a little less.
Like that?
Perfect.
Okay.
The important thing to note, guys, is that our shoulder, our elbow, and wrist should all be stacked on each other.
You can show it again.
Meaning, I would ask Dr. V to bring her wrist back, and now she's in a straight line. So everything's right on top of each other like Legos. When I have my arm or my hand ahead of my elbow or my shoulder, that's going to increase the amount of stress in the shoulder and could lead to some shoulder impingement down the road. So as you're going into your modification, whatever the modification is if you're on the counter, if you're up against the door, making sure everything is stacked, wrist, elbow, shoulder. If you have a slight flexion in the elbow, that's okay. Just making sure we're trying to align as best as we can.
Okay.
So Dr. V is finishing up her shoulder taps. She's going to move on to her thrusters. Cliff is doing a great job of demonstrating thrusters with a TheraBand. Dr. V is doing a great job with the water bottles. Now I'm going to challenge Dr. V to keep her chest up as she goes down.
Okay.
There it is.
Like that?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Again, if that overhead movement is no good,
Let me do this.
we'll do a modification here. And you're just squatting to your depth. And we're going for 20 repetitions, guys. Don't forget the first round is 20 repetitions. You're going at your pace. So you're wondering, why is Cliff, Dre, and Dr. V going at different speeds? We're all going at our own speed. This is meant to be more of a corrective exercise workout, trying to counterbalance a lot of the sitting that we've been doing over the last couple weeks. Isolate some different muscle groups. You have a question, Cliff?
No, it's just Eric just asking, telling what we're doing and what we're wearing.
What we are doing?
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for the clarification. All right, keep it moving, team. So Dr. V is finishing up her round of 20. Perfect. So now she moves to 16. So she's going to do her X chops.
Oh, I take the phone.
Uh-huh.
Oh, no, too heavy.
Too heavy.
Wait,
That weight's going to go towards the hip of the forward leg. Cliff, switch it up so your hands go exactly. You're going to bring it towards the hip. You're going to try to touch that belt loop. Cliff, try to touch that belt loop. Yeah, there you go. It requires a little more core rotation. You're doing 8 on each side. Although you're going at your own pace, I'm not asking for anyone to go very fast, but there is no rest in any of these movements. They're just moving as best as you can.
However, whoever is listening, maybe you want some of your own music in the background. Makes it so much easier to move. Okay.
All right, so Cliff and Dr. V are moving on to their shoulder taps.
Shoulder taps on my knees.
Good. Good job, team.
Only 10 this time, correct?
16.
16.
16. You're going for 16. So
16.
Cliff finished with 16. He's moving on to his thrusters.
16 on each arm or 16 total?
16 total.
Okay.
Good. Now we move on to our thrusters. Now, if you're asking why is a thruster so important, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to gain muscle mass, you're trying to use as many muscle groups as you can in one movement. Those are called compound movements. That's more than one joint moving. So a bicep curl is not a compound movement. But notice that as Dr. V goes down and she brings those water bottles up, that imitates the movement of a bicep curl. And then as she goes overhead, that's also engaging her triceps. Now in the lower body, you're engaging the entire system. So you're burning a lot of calories and you're also going to be gaining a lot of muscle mass.
Mr. Dean says, hello, Doc, Dre, and Cliff.
Hi, Mr.
Hello,
Dean.
sir. All right, so Cliff is finished up. Dr. V is finished up. She's moving on to 12 repetitions.
Oh, yeah.
X chops. So that's 6 each leg. Good, good, good. So Cliff is getting a little tired, so he's not getting as deep into that rotation. That's okay. Good. So Cliff and Dr. V are both challenging themselves by keeping that ball really far from their body. However, if you want to keep that a little bit easier, you drive that ball, that weight, whatever, that object from the hip, you're keeping it close to the body and very close to that shoulder versus having the arms extended out. That's going to drive a lot of stress through the core. All right, so we're hitting 12 shoulder taps total. Team Cliff is shaking and baking. Dr. V is powering through these shoulder taps. Good. So Cliff is done with his shoulder taps. Now he's moving on to his thrusters. If you've only got 15 minutes of time to work out, you want to hit these compound movements: squats, deadlifts, push-ups, pull-ups, anything that engages several joints at once. That's going to make your time most efficient and your energy put towards the most efficient movements as well. Good, good, good. I always say do the hard work first, and then if you still want to do a little bit more isolated workouts, then at the end of this, you can do some bicep curls if you're trying to get a bigger bicep, your tricep extensions. So Cliff is done with his entire repetition scheme. He went through 20 repetitions of all three movements, 16 and 12. Dr. V is finishing up hers right now.
That's it?
That is it. So air five someone that's by you. High five someone. Make sure you wash your hands or hand sanitize immediately. Take a little bit of a break. Grab some water. Let's do a little bit of stretching so you can do the same stretches we did in the warm-up. You can do arms coming across, overhead, angels. If you're feeling up to it, reach down towards your toes. If you're seated, you can reach down towards your toes as well. And now we're going to do a little bit of a burner. So I'm going to have Cliff and Dr. V lay on their mats whenever they're ready.
Oh, yeah, now comes the, all right.
If you've got a bed around you, that is great as well. If you are in a seated position, we will show you modifications to that. So what we're going to do is call these Superman. So Cliff, everyone's going to lay all the way down on the ground. And you can see Dr. V is in the finished position where the arms and the legs are off the floor. She's squeezing her glutes, she's squeezing her low back and her shoulder blades to get everything off the floor. That's one. So she's going to go all the way back down. And for 1 minute, we're going to do as many as we can. If you're in a seated position, you will be in your seated position, and you're just going to extend all the way out, and you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades and slight arch in the low back, and then you're going to come to neutral. And then again. So for 1 minute, you'll be doing as many repetitions as you can. So I'm going to grab my phone. I'm going to get a little timer going. And we start in 3, 2, 1, go. You can go as fast as you'd like, go as slow as you'd like. What we're trying to do is engage that posterior chain. What the posterior chain is your lower back, your upper back, your mid back, your hamstrings, your glute muscle groups. A lot of times when we sit, we're in this position. So we're lengthening our posterior chain. And what we're doing here is we're shortening and engaging those muscle groups to help us get into a better sitting posture. And if you want more information on that, our physical therapist does some postural movement videos on YouTube Live as well. And we got 20 seconds left, so they're not counting out loud, but they're going to give us our numbers at the end of this.
Oh, I haven't counted them.
Uh-oh.
But I feel them.
And 5 seconds left. 2, 1, time. Good.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So where are you guys feeling that, Cliff? Where are you feeling that?
Where am I feeling it?
Yeah.
My core, mainly.
Yeah. Dr. V,
Yeah.
where are you feeling it?
I felt the lower back and shoulders.
Yeah, good, good. All right, we're going to give you guys about another 30 seconds of rest, and then we're going to do what's called a hollow hold. It is a very similar position to the Superman we just did. However, we're laying on our back now. So Cliff, if you don't mind going onto your back. Dr. V is on her back. So now she's going to lay all the way flat. She's going to bring her feet off the ground about 6 inches. So right about there. Her arms and her shoulders are off the ground. She has a really nice hard tummy there. And then she's going to go all the way back to the floor. That's 1. So for 1 minute, you're going to do as many as you can. So go ahead and back up. And that's 2, so on and so forth. If we're in a seated position, if we are in a chair, what we will do is we will start off, and we'll call this our neutral position. So our arms are going to be here. 1 repetition will be your knees coming off and up. So your feet are going to come off the ground. Your hands go overhead or as high as you can get them. That's repetition number 1. Bring it all back down. And 2. And 3. So on and so forth. So now that we're all nice and warmed up, you guys ready for your minute?
Oh!
I thought I already started.
I know. All right, 3, 2, 1, go, everyone.
So another modification, can I do the following? Just have my feet bent.
Exactly.
So it's a
So
little
Dr.
easier on
B
the back.
is bending her knees. The only issue there is you may engage your hip flexor a little bit too much. And if that's the case, the other modification is to bring your legs back straight, leave them on the ground, and now just bring your shoulders and your arms off the floor. Exactly. So you're still engaging your core and the hip flexor is staying lengthened at the same time. In a seated position, your hip flexor gets very, very short. It's a muscle that sits right in our hip here. And so this position is allowing us to still lengthen the hip flexor.
Another idea, how about
You
alternating?
can engage that as well. You can get as creative as we want. You can go opposite arm and leg. You can do same arm and leg. Those modifications come as we progress over time. You guys have 5 seconds left. 3, 1, and time.
Woo.
So now we're going to call that the end of our workout, and you can do that last portion as many times as you like. So that was 1 round. You can do 2, 3, 4, however many you'd like. For the workout itself, we did 20, 16, 12. You can drop that all the way from 20, 16, 12, 8, 4 until you hit 0. You can start at 24 and just drop it by 4 each time. There's different variations to it. Now we're going to do our stretching. So Cliff is going to grab a chair. Dr. D can have the stool. It is week 3, so you guys probably have an idea of what's coming next. We're going to take that right leg, it's going to go out to the front. We're going to take both hands and reach towards that foot. Hold it for a few seconds. You can grab your leg to engage a little bit more. You can grab your toes if you can. If you cannot, that is, you go as low as you can, come back up. Do that a couple times. One of the tricks to stretching is you want to exhale as you reach. The more pressure we have in our abdominal cavity, the harder it is for us to be mobile. So as you exhale, engage a greater range of motion. Once you're feeling nice and limber there, take your left leg out and take both hands, and you're going to reach out towards that ankle, that toe, that knee, whatever landmark you can reach for.
Now, while we do this, for those who came late, I'm wearing the Eric mask today. It's actually Eric mask model number 2. It's gone through several improvements and make it much easier to sew. And please join us on Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eric will model and sew his next iteration of the mask.
Next stretch is our figure 4 stretch. So you're going to try to get that ankle over to the knee. If you have a stool in front of you or another chair, you can have your foot on it like so. So you're not engaging as much knee range of motion there. All right, team, what's next?
Stretch.
Exactly, we're reaching. Take those hands, reach in different directions.
I'm holding on to the desk here.
Yeah, exactly. You can have something in front of you and you can hold on to it. There's 2 types of stretching. Dr. V is doing static stretching, meaning she's not moving while she stretches. Cliff and I are doing dynamic stretching. That means we're including movement in our stretching movements. Both are good. Switch. Think of all the driving we do, all the sitting we do, and how tight our hips can become. So this is stretching our piriformis muscle, our glute muscle groups, maybe even our IT band, depending on how stiff we may feel. Good. For our movement, we did, or for our warm-up, I should say, we did a movement pattern called hip excursions. And we're going to do something very similar, but in a seated position. So we're going to drive our hips forward. So Dr. B is doing a good job there. Cliff is doing a good job from the side. It looks like so. I'm in a neutral position, and now I'm just going to drive my hips forward. And then I'm going to drive them back. You're going to do that about 10 times. And then as we did in the standing position, you're going to take one arm, you're going to go overhead, and then the other. You can hold.
We should just do that every 2 hours or so behind our desks.
Yeah, there's a lot of research that shows that you can move every 20 to 30 minutes of work. And that can be anywhere from getting up to go to the bathroom, go to the kitchen, grab a glass of water. You can stay in your chair, and you can do some of these movements, right?
Right.
And you're going to get some blood flowing. It's going to help increase concentration. Metabolism keeps going. A lot of benefits to moving every 20 to 30 minutes. The next one, we're going to rotate.
Mental fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Often if we look too long at one thing on the screen.
So now notice, guys, everything's coming from our upper body, our shoulders, and our core. We're not letting our hips go with us. If we let our hips go with us, we're going to reduce the amount of stress and stretch we can get through our core, and it'll defeat the purpose of our stretch.
Now, Dre, what can we do at the end of this for our necks? I always get so neck stiff.
Neck stiff?
Neck stiff. Is there anything
Stiff
we
neck.
can do?
So a lot of times when we have a stiff neck, we think we got to start moving it. So one of the natural things we like to do is we like to start just moving our head. Instead of doing that, keep your eyes fixed on something. So in this case, we're all going to keep our eyes fixed on the camera, and we're going to turn our shoulders as best as we can. So now we're doing the same thing as if I were to try to turn my head to the right, except we're letting our lower back and our mid back do the movement, and our neck stays still, and we're still getting what's called relative range of motion. Exactly. So letting everything that's not painful, mid back, lower back, do the work, and then our neck or cervical spine is going to receive the benefit of that.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard that before. That's cool.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Instead of moving, let's say you have a rock in front of you, instead of trying to move the rock, which may be very difficult or in this case painful, you try to move around it and still get to your destination. And so the other thing you can do here is if you're having issues going up and down, what I would recommend is you would reach onto something, Dr. V. So you would be onto a desk like this, and then you can keep your eyes fixed on that desk, and you're just going to move your hips back and move your hips forward. And notice my head goes to different levels. So you keep your eyes fixed on the chair, and now scooch forward. Exactly. So in that same movement, your neck is going through extension and flexion, as long as you keep your eyes fixed on the object.
Ah, I see. So the hip, that stays up.
Exactly. So you're in extension, and then now you're in flexion.
Uh-huh.
And as you scoot back, extension. So instead of actually taking my neck through that movement, which could be painful,
Yeah,
I'm letting my body do the movement for me.
that's right. Because this is painful.
Exactly.
But this is not. This is
Exactly.
great.
Exactly. And the reason that that's not as painful is you're starting to engage your core. And the general rule of thumb is the more you engage your core, the easier anything becomes.
Very good.
So those are great questions for Dr. V. If you have any questions similar to that, shoot us an email, send us a message in the chat, and we can address them now. Next workout, we'll send out a different email to you, and we can individualize things. And I know we're all facing different challenges at the moment, so we're just trying to do our best to make sure we can help you all with your specific challenges. So just let us know, reach out to us. We've got YouTube videos throughout the week. The next one is Wednesday, I believe.
Wednesday again, mask sewing, Eric mask number 2. I love that format, and I sewed myself a couple over the weekend. It's really super easy. So come join.
All right, team. See you next one. Drink lots of water today.
Bye.